Deep in the heart of Siberia, beyond the reach of civilization, where the cold bites through flesh like a predator in the night, there lives a man. A man who has spent 2 decades surviving alone in a world where winter never truly ends. The only sound, besides the howling winds, is the growl of bears circling his home. This is the story of Samuil, a man who walked away from society, into the wilderness, and never looked back. But why? Temperature and atmosphere of Siberian forest. Welcome to the East Siberian Taiga, a vast, unforgiving ecoregion spanning across 20 degrees of latitude and 50 degrees of longitude. From 52 degree to 72 degree north and 80 degree to 130 degree east, this land is defined by extreme subarctic conditions. Temperatures swing wildly, from a scorching 40 degrees Celsius in the short, brutal summers to an unimaginable minus 65 degrees Celsius in winter, and possibly even lower. Snowfall? Surprisingly little. The Siberian anticyclone keeps the skies clear, making the cold even more relentless. Here, winters aren't just cold, they're merciless. A place where warmth is a luxury and survival is a battle fought every single day. Unlike the West Siberian Taiga, where vast bogs and wetlands stretch for miles, this region is different. Here, towering coniferous and deciduous trees stand as silent witnesses to the frozen desolation. Some trees shed their leaves yearly, their skeletal branches reaching toward the sky, waiting for the sun that barely stays long enough to offer warmth. And somewhere, buried deep in these endless forests, lives a man who chose isolation over the company of others. A man whose only neighbors are the wolves, the frost, and the bears. "5 hours away from the nearest village, in a tiny, fragile cabin made from scavenged material. Samuil, now 67 years old, has spent the last 20 years alone. He once lived in a small Russian village but left it behind, because life there was, in his words, too boring. His days are spent hunting, fishing, and listening to an old radio, his only connection to the outside world. His cabin? A fragile fortress against the cold. The windows, mere sheets of crumbling cellophane, barely hold back the icy breath of the Siberian winds. Inside, tarpaulin, tin sheets, and blankets form a makeshift insulation, his only defense against frostbite. Each day is a test of endurance. Every step outside his cabin could be his last. The snow beneath his feet is a treacherous enemy, and the cold, it seeps into his bones like poison. At nearly 70, his body is weakening. Every morning as he steps outside, he whispers a prayer. "My God, Jesus Christ, please help me. When I go to the village, please help me to find some food." But the cold isn't his only enemy. There is something else, something far more dangerous. "I have seen many bears passing by my house," Samuil says. "They are walking around my house. My dogs are always barking. Thank God they don't come inside. They could be very dangerous. But they don't care about me. We are like neighbors." To survive, Samuil has created an ingenious underground freezer, storing meat without electricity. His food supply? A mix of fish from a nearby lake and wild animals like hare, hunted with skills honed over years of isolation. And when he needs money, he makes a long, dangerous journey to the city of Yakutsk, where he sells handmade brooms. A journey that is anything but safe. The nearest city, Yakutsk, is a place where even minus 40 degrees Celsius is considered a warm afternoon. A place where metal freezes to the skin, where cars must run 24/7 to keep their engines from turning to ice. This is where Samuil walks, alone, carrying his handmade brooms for a few rubles to survive. But why? Is it a mere obsession with surviving in the cold all alone, or a chilling reminder for the people, a legacy he wants to leave behind? Why did he abandon society? Samuil lost his entire family when he was young. Loneliness consumed him, so he escaped. He walked away from the world, away from people, and into the freezing embrace of the forest. A life of solitude was his only refuge, his only escape from a world that had already taken everything from him. Or he wanted to make peace with himself and the loss of his family by the only companion he had, the cold Siberian forest. His cold home, where death might feel warm to him, no matter how dreadful it gets. It can't be worse than it already is. His story has not gone unnoticed. Filmmaker Quinn documented his life in the short film 2 Decades of Siberian Solitude. Those who have met him describe him as kind, a man willing to share his food, his stories, and his wisdom on surviving one of the harshest places on Earth. Siberia has become his home, the wilderness, his companion, the cold, his greatest enemy, and yet the only thing he truly understands. How does one survive such cold? Living alone in the wilderness, it sounds like something out of a novel, the beauty, the serenity, the peace. But step beyond the surface and you'll find the cold, brutal reality waiting beneath. Isolation, danger, a battle for survival that never truly ends. For 20 years, Samuil has called the wild Siberian forest his home, a place where the trees whisper in the wind, where the wolves prowl in the shadows, and where the temperatures plummet to extremes no human was meant to endure. He lives alone, by choice, in one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. What drives a man to leave civilization behind? To live alongside bears and wolves? To wake up each morning with the knowledge that every step outside could be his last? This is not some poetic journey about finding oneself. This is not a story about a man who has somehow figured it all out. It's just survival, the rawest, purest form of existence. No electricity, no grocery stores, no warm bed waiting at the end of the day. Every necessity is fought for, earned, and sometimes lost. The isolation is real, the loneliness even more so. But there's something else too, something that makes it worth it. Freedom. A connection to nature so deep that it becomes part of you. A way of living that strips life down to its most basic, brutal, and beautiful form. This story is not about philosophy. It's not about technology versus nature. And it's not about making some grand statement on modern life. Samuil's choices are his own, and they exist beyond judgment. He doesn't seek approval. He doesn't ask for understanding. He simply lives. For most of us, the idea of surviving at minus 70 degrees Celsius is beyond comprehension. A temperature where your breath freezes midair, where every step feels different, where the very air itself seems frozen, trapping sound in eerie silence, where even the animals that survive there barely do. Siberia is a world apart from anything most of us will ever know. If you have lived through cold winters before, you might have felt the sting of minus 3 degrees Celsius, the way it burns your skin, the way it makes every breath a challenge. dealing with frozen eyelashes, the pain in one's nostrils, the struggle of simply stepping outside. And yet, you know you wouldn't last a single night in Samuil's world. The difference between -3 degrees Celsius and -30 degrees Celsius is more than just numbers. It's survival versus suffering. And the temperatures Samuil endures, they're beyond anything you could ever imagine. In a place where throwing boiling water into the air causes it to explode into ice, where even urine freezes midstream into a twisted sculpture of frost, where stepping outside at -22 degrees Celsius makes you pray for a warm day just so you can get some work done, this is where Samuil calls home. Technology allows us to glimpse into lives so far removed from our own that they feel almost unreal. And yet, even in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, Samuil is not so different from us. He eats, he works, he sleeps, he hopes, he survives. But for how much longer? What drives a man to live in the most brutal environment on Earth? And what happens when the cold finally catches up? Subscribe to Mystery Media to uncover more untold stories from the edge of civilization. Hit the bell icon because the next mystery might just be darker than you expect.